right, and we are live. We'll know everybody. I already see there's 10 people here, so thank you very much for being here. As is the unfortunate tradition, sometimes this thing cuts off and I have to restart. So if I interrupted abruptly and I don't end in a formal way, just know that I'll be back and keep an eye on the channel. That being said, my name is Ọnwa, as you probably already know, and I want to thank you for being a part of this stream. This stream is to celebrate Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ, the new moon that we are in. This is the planting moon. So with that being said, what I'm going to do today is kind of explain what that means in general, what it meant for our ancestors, and then what it could possibly mean for us in the contemporary era or modern day, especially if we ourselves are not farmers. I'm a balcony gardener, so it still has a farming significance to me. But I'm going to go ahead and begin, as always, by presenting Ọjị. Okay, by presenting Ọjị. If I have not explained the ceremony, the Ọjị ceremony, or if you haven't heard me explain it in one of my videos, I'm going to be doing a video on Ọjị pretty soon. So if you want to see it sooner rather than later, go ahead and let me know in the comments or message me. You guys always know how to get a hold of me. And I'll put it up for vote on patreon.com/themedicineshell. So let me pull this up here in just a second. All right. So Okike Keruwa. Alane dumendin Alane dumendin dunande mo. Ọjị abịala. Ndị ichem na ndị ibe m, Ọjị abịala. Ọjị ke wu ọjị ndụ, Ọjị ke wu ọjị akụ na ụba. Ọjị ke wu ọjị akọ na uche. N'ọkọ ga-adị n'eke, n'ọkọ ga-adị n'orie, n'ọkọ ga-adị n'afọ, n'ọkọ ga-adị na nkwọ. Ise. So very simple. What I struggled through saying was that the creator and the earth who keeps both person and spirits, both madu na mo, that the Ọjị is here. I've invited them all to come and participate in taking Ọjị with us. Then I said, let me pull it up so I can be exact. I said, Ndichem na Ndibem. So my ancestors and my, Nigerians, we always say mates, but to an American ear, that probably sounds weird. But peers, I guess. So my ancestors and my mates are peers. The Ọjị is here. Then I said that this Ọjị is an Ọjị of life. This is an Ọjị of wealth, akunoba. It's hard to explain, but more or less wealth and prosperity. This is an Ọjị of ideas and wisdom. This is and this is how it's going to be on Eke Day, on Orie Day, on Afọ Day, on Nkwọ Day. And then he said, and sent it off into the universe. He said, "Thank you very much, Princess Kaha. Hope I'm saying your name right." So more or less, usually when I do any type of prayer thing, I try to explain what I'm saying. A lot of people are interested in how to do their own prayers or how they can kind of take what I'm saying and incorporate it into their own life. So I think that's a kind of a good window in. And I also have something to announce that kind of relates to that towards the end of the video. So if you're in here, stay tuned. I got something to announce that I'm working on. So stay tuned to that. So yeah, today is Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ. Now, if you do not need me, I'm good. Yes, you pronounced it perfectly. Okay, awesome. That's a first. If you're coming to me for pronunciations on anything, even Igbo, whatever, it's not going to happen here. So that's not a strong suit of mine. But yeah, so if you're not trying to have me come on live to know when each new moon and what it means is happening, I have created a 13 moon calendar that also tells the 4 market days, and it's available to all patrons that sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/themedicineshell. It also tells you certain observances and rites and celebrations and so forth throughout Igbo land. So if you sign up, you can you'll have access to that. And that's kind of where I'm pulling a lot of the information from. That's how I know when the new moon is coming. That's how I know what market day it is, so on and so forth. It's helped me organize my own understanding of our ancestral timekeeping. So yeah, if you're interested in that, it's patreon.com/themedicineshell. Now, what would be really nice to see is I'm looking for individuals who are willing to volunteer, that know some of the holidays in their ancestral communities, who know the different masquerades and when they come out and so forth. All you got to do is tell me the name of the masquerade and what month, the English month. You don't have to use Igbo one. The English month that comes out, I can figure out the rest, right? I'm trying to incorporate as many different communities as possible, because these things are not universal in Igbo land. So the action or how it is done is going to differ by community, but the energy behind each of the actions is going to be more or less the same. So in this community, I'm calling it Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ, based on what I've learned and so forth, and what it's called in some communities. Other communities won't call it that, but you'll notice that everybody will be planting in this season. If they're not planting this season, they're clearing fields during this moon, the next 28 days, right? In some communities, the moon prior, they're clearing fields, and so forth. So either planting is going to happen this moon or the next moon. So like I said, while what is done in each community is different, and the different, I guess, let's call it rituals that go behind planting will differ by community, what is the general idea, the core idea is always the same. And this is from Igbo land all the way to Congo into Ivory Coast so far. I had a patron point out that even in, I want to say he said Guinea-Bissau, either Guinea-Bissau or Gambia, that one of the things we were speaking about was identical over there. So I don't doubt that this thing is universal. So the names will differ, the actions will be the same. Many of you who are familiar with Ifa will also see a lot of the same things too. So that being said, this is the planting moon. So for our ancestors, be the infinity. Hey, how you doing? For our ancestors, this was the moon that there are multiple planting moons throughout the year, but this particular one is the main one. And in a lot of communities, this is New Year's, right? This is the beginning of the new year, because this is the first planting of the planting cycle, right? So what will traditionally happen is there's a clearing of the field in the moon prior. And you'll see a lot of ceremonies that relate to Agun, right? That relate to Agun, and a lot of ceremonies that also relate to things that pertain to accountability and the community's history. For example, this is something that you could have done the previous moon, but you can do it in this moon too. There's a ceremony in some communities that it's not, you won't see it that often because it's associated with Ekwensu, and people are firmly convinced Ekwensu is the devil. So it's that type of thing. But what happens during this ceremony is that you will declare all of the things that brought you failure in the previous year. So it could be laziness, it can be what's another thing? Distraction. It can be insecurities, different things. You'll declare them out loud. You'll say these different things, right? You'll say them. Now, in some places, what they'll do is they'll take a pot. It's usually the matriarch of the family or the wife of the family, right? She'll take a pot, and after everything's declared, they'll smash it on the ground, and then it'll be swept out. It'll be smashed in the kitchen. It has to be smashed in the kitchen. Once it's smashed in the kitchen, it'll be swept out. So all of those different things you have put into that pot, you've cracked it, and then you've swept it out of the community. On a community or your house. Now, on a community level, there's a mass sweeping of the community roads. After the same thing, we let all the things that caused failure the previous year, so on and so forth, and then making vows to yourself that this thing won't return, this thing is not going to be my portion, so on and so forth, and then you sweep it out of the community, right? So we acknowledge these things as a presence that messed us up previously, but we're saying, but this year, or this planting season, not this one. So then from there, we remove them from the equation. Now, again, it's always important. So what I speak about is Odinani, right? Odinani translates to how it is on the land. There's a layer above Odinani called Omenala or Omenani, depending on your dialect. And that's how it is done on the land, right? So the things I speak about, Odinani, those are those things that are pretty consistent in every community. Those are the things that are based off of observation. Now, how you act or how you react to that observation or how you apply that observation is Omenala. It's the word we use to translate culture, right? And that's up to you. That's completely up to you. So maybe you're not going to smash a pot and sweep it out, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to write a list of things and I'm going to set it on fire. That's what I'm going to do, right? Then I'll sweep it out. You can do it any way you want, but the general idea is form a ritual that resonates with you that you use to remove the spirit of failure or all the different things that brought you failure in the previous year or the previous planting season from being a factor this year, but also holding yourself accountable, right? Saying that I will do this thing. I will do this thing. I will get it done. I will succeed. I will do X, Y, Z. And then you sweep that thing out, right? Now, the reason it is associated with Ekwensu is that afterwards, the community will then call on the spirit of Ekwensu to protect the community or sometimes protect the household and assure that that thing doesn't come back, right? If you've watched my video, Ekwensu Explained, Ekwensu is the Albara. I think at the time I was saying Arashi. I've switched to Albara though, because it's more accurate. But Ekwensu is the Albara that all Albara fear. Right, so a lot of times you'll see in Igbo, like in mythology and things like that, Ekwensu is the one that Chukwu sends to enforce order. Right, I told a story in my markets, sacred market system explained. I'm trying to remember how I title it, but it's the video about markets. And I think if somebody knows the title, you can go ahead and say it there or whatever. But I explained a story where in the I almost knocked over this fancy light I just got. I explained this story when in the beginning of time, right, Chukwu is trying to reform the universe. Now, if you watch enough videos, you probably know that the universe itself is Eke, is his wife. It's the other pair, right? They are one and the same. Chi and Eke are one and the same. And when we say God, we say Chineke, right? They are one and the same. But that's another story. So, but he's trying to rebuild the universe, right? And in rebuilding the universe, Chukwu has the Albara that are helping build the universe and holding it up and things like that, right? The Albara are the elemental forces of the universe. So there's Nemi, there's Amadioha, there's Ekwensu, there's Igwe, the sky, there's Ana, the earth. I mean, on so on and so on. Like every single element, there's an Albara that represents it. So these are the elemental forces of the universe, right? So what ends up happening is while this process is being done, the different Albara become jealous of each other. They start becoming jealous. They start becoming competitive. They start kind of looking over their shoulder and they start wondering which one of them is superior to the next, right? Yes, we're all important, but which among us is the most important? And this continues and continues until it reaches a head and they can no longer work together. And this risks tearing the universe apart, right? This situation risks tearing the universe apart. Now, if you know that Chukwu and the universe are one and the same, this is also a risk of Chukwu tearing his self or itself apart, right? So Chukwu devises a plan. What Chukwu decides to do is to have each Abara that is male paired with an Abara that is female. And then he divides the universe into sections and gives each of these households their own section. But in the middle, Chukwu builds a thing called a market, right? This is how markets were invented. Chukwu builds a market and says that anytime an Albara wants something from another one, they can come there and trade with each other so that when they meet, they interface and they reach equilibrium. Like you go into, let's call it Walmart, or if you go to a market, I say market. If you go to a market and you have money, the people there in the market want money, but they have a surplus of something that isn't money that you may want. So you take the thing you want from them, they take the thing you want from you, and then you guys are balanced, or you guys have reached equilibrium before going home, right? And so that was one of the main themes of that thing. But what Chukwu ended up doing was had Ekwensu enforce this order. Ekwensu enforced this order. So a lot of times, you'll hear, these days I'm hearing more Ekwensu's not the devil than I'm hearing Ekwensu's the devil. So that's a great thing. But Ekwensu in the end is the one that has to enforce universal order, to keep things designed the way they're supposed to be designed. That's why it is said that when a ritual is done, Ekwensu watches to make sure the ritual is done correctly. And if the ritual is done correctly, Ekwensu will take that thing to where it was supposed to, where it was intended to go, be it heaven or to Chukwu, Obi Chukwu, anything you want to call it, and so forth. So yeah, the market retains all balance. Yes, like flyers, exactly. So that market on an abstract level, that is a metaphor for just balance in general. So in these communities, in a lot of communities, what will happen is once that you sweep that thing out. You guys decree the coming year will be a year of prosperity. This will be done. This will be done. That will be done. This thing won't happen. This thing won't happen. That thing won't happen. And then you call on Ekwensu to assure that that thing doesn't come, or that's how it's going to be, more or less. That's how it's going to be, right? Now, here's the thing. Ekwensu's no joke. So if you're making a vow and you're using that name, you need to take that thing very seriously. As much as, a lot of times we say like, okay, the Europeans came and they translated Ekwensu as the devil. Yes and no. What actually happened was there was a survey. There was a group of enslaved people that were from Igbo land in Sierra Leone. And these Europeans and actually a Yoruba guy, Ajayi Crowder, I want to say he's a part of this mission. If he's not a part of this specific survey, he's linked to the story. So in Sierra Leone, they're asking these people from a part in Igbo land called Isu. Like most of the people they had captured were from a part of Igbo land called Isu, which is where my wife is from, actually. And they were asking these people, who is the devil in your belief system? Who is the devil in your culture? And they couldn't really get a clear answer, but they narrowed it down to either Amadioha, Agun, or Ekwensu. So they all took a survey. They surveyed these enslaved people, and Ekwensu ended up winning. And that's how the translation ended up happening, right? I mean, yes, we say it's Europeans, but it was actually a Yoruba guy that did it, albeit as an agent of the European colonializing mission and so forth. But that's how that happened. So the reason that ended up winning is because they're going to be asking questions such as, who's the scary one? Who's the one that people fear? So on and so forth. And Ekwensu was the answer that most people said. So if you're making that vow, be serious about it, right? And if it's not worth making a serious vow, you're probably lying to yourself, right? You're probably saying something that maybe you think you should do, but your own chi is not resonating with you. It's not within your own chi or your own path to do. So the thing that you set out to do for this moon, for 2 moons, right? The new yam is going to be in 2 moons. Or hold on, what is this one? Let's just say, and I got to look at my calendar, but it's going to be in the fall, or what we would call fall in the U.S. So September, October type of time, or like around then, right? So from now until then, for the rest of this summer, let's call it, whatever it is you're going to endeavor to do has to be something you're very serious about on a level, like on a level beyond just words. If you're not confident enough to make a vow to yourself to do that thing, leave it alone. It's not for you, right? It's never going to happen. So that's that. So as far as the it was Bishop Ajayi Crowder who was responsible for that confusion. Yes, thank you, Princess. So he came with that. He translated a lot of different things, so that type of thing. So, but as far as the Ifejiọkụ goes, now the important thing about this moon is the yam, which is particularly interesting and particularly important in Igbo culture. If you have read Things Fall Apart, assuming you're not from home, if you've read things like Things Fall Apart, or you heard just about anything about Igbo culture, you're only a few sentences away from hearing how important the yam is to Igbo people. I have a video it's a clip from a video, but it's Eri, the story of Eri, right? The story of Eri. And this kind of shows where that yam, the importance of the yam is. And I'm going to go into that story in a little bit, but I wanted to point out something that I noticed that was really interesting in my own research. Now, there's a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, which most of you are probably familiar with. It's a very popular book. And it was talking about how the Europeans were able to colonize the different parts of the world and so forth. And one of the parts that they emphasized or that they spoke about was when the Europeans reached South Africa, they found that they couldn't pass a certain threshold. And that even where they were at as a population, the amount of them that were dying, despite them having what they believed was modern medicine, it just wasn't making sense to them, right? Now they understood that, okay, we can't live on this climate, we can't live in this place, but why are these people living in this place, right? They wanted to go beyond the idea that, oh, this is just a racial thing, that this race lives here, that they said, okay, what's going on there? And one of the things that the book pointed out was that the Europeans were also suffering a lot of crop failure, recurrent crop failure. So they decided to start seeing how the Africans that were living there were doing their crops. And they noticed that a lot of the crops that they were growing grew underground, right? They grew underground. These are tubers, yams, cocoa yams, and things of that family, right? And what is very interesting about that is that if you, and I'm probably going into like a place where is not that interesting for most people, but bear with me. I was looking at the soil types in the different parts of Africa, right? And we have this story about the Bantu migration. And I say it with quotes because while there is evidence that there was some type of mass movement of people, I don't believe that thing has been researched enough or even at all beyond the first person making a guess. And the guess he made was based off of some Africans in South Africa have iron, other ones don't. The ones that have iron are probably from somewhere else. And then a couple people added on, and then that was about it. So I say theory very strongly because it's not something that's really verified. But there was, based on, if you look into it, it correlates, it makes sense. So if you look at that, the path of the migration, the type of soil, it's like, I can't remember how to say the names, like acid something something. The type of soil that is along that band of movement is the exact same soil you would find in Igbo land. And what is particularly interesting is that soil is adept to tuber farming, right? So there's a connection there. That yam, in retrospect, it either seems funny or it seems that like, oh, they had a yam god, or it seems like something like, okay, maybe in that time yams were important, so on and so forth. But if you look into it, the fact being able to plant underground allowed them to live on any climate on earth, right? So long as you can dig, I can plant. Is why potatoes work so well everywhere, so on and so forth. That innovation, the ability to eat from the underground as opposed to above it, was revolutionary and allowed human beings to spread across the world and so forth. So when you look at the culture, you now see the place that the yam holds. You understand a little bit better if you understand the historical significance and the role it played in keeping populations alive in new environments, and so forth. What is also particularly interesting is that when you look at human migration, one thing that makes the Bantu migration so special is that the Bantu migration moves, I'm going to say it wrong, so I'll just say the simple way, up and down, right? So you start from here and then you go down. Now, without penicillin and modern medicine, this is unthinkable for people. It's unthinkable for early people because once you go downwards on a map, the climate changes. And when that climate changes, the diseases are new. You're dealing with brand new diseases. You're dealing with a climate that you're not culturally adept to, right? So you may be in a tropical place. You're barely wearing clothes. You go up a little bit. All of a sudden, you're cold. You guys are dying. You don't know why, right? Usually you're uncomfortable, right? So the diseases and so forth, they go on bands, strips like that all across the map, strips. Like if you go anywhere on the equator, the type of sicknesses they have in one place is going to be the same everywhere, right? So if you've adapted to that, let's say you've adapted that, then you have somebody from further up north come down, they're going to die because they're not adapted to that. But what the Bantus were able to do at a time that predates just about anything you can think of was do an up and down movement. And what allowed them to do that? Oh, another thing is, plants also grow on latitude lines. They also go flat across, right? So I can grow plants across the same line like that. But if I go up a little bit more, I might have more difficulty. If I go up more, I absolutely will not be able to grow that thing, right? That kind of thing. That's why there's a lot of Nigerians here in Houston because Houston is close to the line, the temperature zone or the climate zone as Nigeria or a lot of our region of Africa. And you'll notice a lot of people are growing things in their backyard, who buy all this stuff in their backyard, and you can go to the store and buy XYZ and it's very comfortable, right? Whereas where I grew up in Nebraska, you can't grow none of that. My mom had a bunch of sticks in her backyard trying to think that she was going to grow. I can't remember what she was trying to grow at the time, but it just didn't work out. So it moves on a flat line. So imagine you're eating this food, then you go south a little bit, all of a sudden you can't eat nothing. But when you grow underground, it allows you to eat anywhere, any and everywhere, because it's protected from the climate. So that yam thing is not just, the Igbos liked yams or it was that's how they showed that they were important, XYZ. There's a very, very significant scientific implication to that particular, is it a vegetable? To that tuber. There's something very special about that tuber. It's not just because they like eating that, right? And even if you go into the diaspora with the African American population, you now see the importance of the yam, especially in places with large, I mean, at this point, almost indigenous anyways, but large Black American population. You see a lot of growing of the yam. You'll go to Jamaica. I know in the Rastafari culture, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Dasheen is held in a very high regard. All these different things are held in regard because of what it is. So Njoku, the culture, the idea of Njoku or Njoku-ji or Aha Njoku is there's an entire culture around this Abara, right? Njoku is said to be the Abara of the yam. Njoku represents the yam on the most abstract level, or is linked to the yam, right? And the story I was referencing before is the story of Eri. Now, I've told the story before, but I'll go ahead and tell it again. We got time, why not? But in the story of Eri, what happens is Chukwu sends Eri. Eri was sent to sit at the right hand of Chukwu and Obi Chukwu. And after some time, Eri is sent to Earth to live. So Eri comes down onto the earth. And at the time Eri came, the world was muddy, right? So it was a mix of water and soil. It had not gained its form. In some stories, it says that everything was covered in water except where Eri landed. In other stories, it said that the world was just just quicksand, more or less. So what Chukwu does is sends a man from a community called Oka, or I don't know if it's a man. It's probably a man because it's smithing. So sends a man from a community called Oka to use his bellows to clear or to dry up the water and make the soil solid. Now, if you know anything about the community at Oka is a famous iron smithing community. This is what they're world famous for. And well before the modern era, Oka smiths were able to travel throughout Africa. I have a map that shows all of the different communities outside of Igbo land and so forth that they went to throughout Africa because they were expert ironsmiths. And on top of being expert ironsmiths, they're experts at fine ironsmithing. So they can make very intricate, ornate things with iron. They can make weapons. And then after European contact, they and the people of Unkwere figured out how to make their own guns, right? So those two communities, there are all other ironsmithing communities, but those two in particular were famous for ironsmithing and then making guns and so forth in the modern era before colonialism and so forth, right? And so the Chukwu sent this Oka person to clear the land and make everything dry. UIU is in Houston this year. Okay, I saw that. Yes, I'm here. I don't know if I'm going to go though. If I remember, I'll go. But yeah, so Chukwu makes the land dry. The Oka man makes the land dry for Eri, and Eri then settles there with his wife Namaku, and they begin to have children. Now, what happens is because Eri is from Obi Chukwu, Eri doesn't eat from the earth. All that happens is all Eri has to do is call upon Chukwu, and Chukwu will send what's called Azrigwe, which is heavenly fish, right? And Eri can eat this fish. It doesn't eat the plants or anything like that. Now, in Igbo cosmology, there are what's called the 4 world ages, and this story is a transition story. It's how we transition from one world age to another. It's not necessarily the story of the beginning of the Igbos, right? A lot of people like to, or no, I'm not gonna say that, but there's a growing kind of narrative that this is the origin story of Igbo culture, and that is not true, because even within the story, there's a man from Oka. You understand? Because this is the founding of a town called Unri, right? And the founding of the clan called Umunri, which is a collection of 8 villages. It's not all of Igbo land, just 8 villages, right? Or 8 communities. Let me not say villages, like 8 main communities and that type of thing. And then those communities have their branch offs and things like that, but 8 original main communities, primarily in the southern Anambra, kind of central southern Anambra area, right? And so within this story, there's already an Oka, so it's not the beginning of Igbo culture and that type of thing. I think that narrative of it being the beginning of Igbo culture started, this is kind of, if you're not Nigerian, this might confuse you a little bit. I think that started around the time of Festak, the Festival of African Culture, yada, 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 because the Yoruba people had kind of taken their mythology and kind of crammed it together to be more linear so that they're all one people, right? But originally that wasn't the case. Like the story of Oduduwa is specifically of the Ife people, right? But there are other Yoruba people who are not Ife people that are not descendants of Oduduwa, but around that time, their politicians had decided that we're going to do this so we can be more united and so forth. So after Festac, all of a sudden you start hearing all these stories about Eri being the founder of Igbos, kind of trying to do the exact same thing with a little less consensus. So what ends up being really popular online on the internet, because it was just on paper. But if you go on the ground and start telling, somebody from Amiibo that he's from Nri, he's gonna insult you, that type of thing. If he's a real Nwafo, he's gonna insult you because that's not his history, that type of thing. So and a lot of like the online Igbo community, you just hear all this Eri, Nri. It's based off of that. That's what it's based on. But anyways, back to the story. Sorry about that. So he's eating the heavenly fish, and then what happens is he now has a son named Nri. Now Eri, is the father. He has Nri, and Eri now passes away. So Nri becomes the leader of the clan or the leader of the family that he has left behind. Now Nri tries to reach out to get heavenly fish as Nigwe, and it doesn't happen. He tries again, it doesn't happen. He tries again, it doesn't happen. Everybody starts panicking. Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to eat, right? So at this point, Nri himself had 2 children, right? 1 girl, 1 boy. And Chukwu told Nri that what he has to do next is he has to bury his children. He has to kill the son and bury the son, kill the daughter and bury the daughter. But that before, what was it? No, not yet. So, and so Nri hears this and is, no, I'm not going to do that. Absolutely not, right? So the starvation continues and continues and continues. After a while, Nri then, Chukwu then appeals to Nri comes to Nri with a new appeal and says, okay, fine. What I will do is I'll allow you to put Iche marks on their heads, right? They can put Iche marks on their heads. So they call another person from, I want to say Oka or Umudi Oka, to put the Iche marks on their heads. Now, the significance of that is that the Iche marks are the marks of a living ancestor, meaning that if the children have that mark on their head, they are assured to reincarnate. The world has allowed them to know that we want you back. You understand? And remember, I've explained this in multiple videos. Reincarnation in Igbo cosmology is by consensus of the community. It's not necessarily between you and Chukwu. You understand? There are things your community will do to assure that you come back. Giving you a title is one. Giving you a proper burial is another, right? Giving you those 2 things, giving you a proper burial and giving you a title, which goes with the Iche marks. It's a title, right? So Nri finally agrees, since, okay, fine, my children can have the Iche marks. They do the thing. He sacrifices both children. He buries them. He waits several days and several days and several days. And what happens next is that out of the grave of the son, the yam emerges. And out of the grave of the daughter, the cocoa yam emerges, right? And so everybody, they're ecstatic about this. They had never seen anything like this before. This is the beginnings of agriculture, the beginnings of planting, right? So they rushed and they ate everything, right? But Chukwu stopped them and said that they should leave a little bit of it and replant it. They should never complete the whole thing and replant it. And then on the next meal, leave a little bit and replant it, right? And if you know how yams are grown, that's how they do it. You leave the head and so forth. And so this is the beginning of agriculture. And because of this, because Nri agreed, Chukwu gives Nri an ofo, right? A staff of authority. And this ofo allows Nri and Nri's descendants to go across the whole of the world, cleansing abominations and forming medicines based on yams. They have the ofo, they are born with the ofo to do these 2 things if you're from Nri, right? If you're from that community, right? And so forth. So, and on top of that, because they have this ofo and because they have this acknowledgement, when they move through Igbo land, even in times of war, people don't attack them. Right? You don't attack them, you don't harass them, you don't anything like that. When they come in, you greet them as guests. They are seated separately, but you greet them as guests and so forth because of this, the significance of this, right? Now, I've heard 2 narratives. I heard one narrative that says that the Njoku, the whole culture around the Njoku-ji and so forth, is associated with the 2 children that were buried. It is to honor them for feeding the rest of the world from time on and for time immemorial, right? From now till time immemorial, right? So that's the one I've heard. I'm not going to say it because I usually try to hear things in two places before I come out and say it, or I confirm it as, okay, something I feel comfortable saying. So is honoring those two children. The other one I heard is that it's not necessarily associated with that story, right? It's not associated with that story. And there's another story to it that I'll share in my Njokuji story and so forth. But either way, the end result is we now have this Abara by the name of Njoku or Njokuji. And Njokuji is the Abara of the yam for men and the cocoa yam for women. Njoku is female, but oddly enough, most people named Njoku are male. So I kind of want to know the history behind that. That I don't know yet, so I'm not going to say why. You understand? But Njoku is female, though most people named Njoku are male, right? And so that's the story. That's why the yam is held in the esteem that it is held. Now, traditionally, a person, they would say that a man's wealth was measured by the size of his yam barn. So what you'll see is during the new yam season, right, the open display of what you're able to grow and what you're able to produce and so forth, of the sweat from your brow, right? Being able to show that to the community, that type of thing. Earning titles such as DG, which is the yam master of the yam, or man of the yam, right? For women, it is the cocoa yam, right? It's or ide. Cocoa yam, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if people in this country or in the country I'm in, the United States, are familiar with the cocoa yam, but it's like a circular kind of small brown yam. You can Google it. It tastes phenomenal, that type of thing. But that was one for women. So traditionally in farming, men would grow the longer yams, and then women would grow the cocoa yam. But when it's time to sell them, the woman sells both of them, right? That type of thing. So and that, as far as the culture of the yam goes, that's that. Now, in the modern day, most of us are not yam planters or yam farmers and so forth. Even back then, most people, I mean, even if they planted yam, you probably have to have another occupation on top of that, because planting takes months. It's not like something that happens in rapidly. So, what then does it mean for us in the modern day? Right. So the way I see it and the way I'm going to treat this moon is as a planting moon for things beyond agriculture. Unless you actually are a farmer, then go for it, but just things like that. So a lot of us have different business ideas. A lot of us have project ideas. A lot of us want to go somewhere or finish a book or finish a work of art or finish a course or a class. A lot of us want to re-enroll in school. A lot of us want to get our grades up, that type of thing. There are a lot of things that we've walked around all year wanting to do. And there's been a million and one reasons not to, or maybe you have set a certain time aside in the year to get to it. I mean, everybody has their reasoning or their rationale, right? But this is the thing, right? So whatever is planted in this moon is what we're going to celebrate for the new moon, festival. Now, this is the announcement I was going to make. I'm going to have an online, I'm still putting things together and trying to make sure it works. I'm going to have an online New Yam festival, right? So we can all have this festival together. Right. And in this, we're going to be discussing the different things we were able to achieve. We're going to be celebrating each other's achievements and accomplishments as it was done previous. And it's still done. New Year Festival has not gone anywhere and will never go anywhere. In my own community, my family hosts it. Right. Traditionally, every community will have a family that hosts the New Yam Festival. And it's usually a family linked to the founder of the town. Right. Or am I saying that right? Something of that nature. So the founder of the town, but not, I don't want to say that. So yeah, it's usually a community linked to like the founder of the town, that type of thing. So my community, just by luck, that's one of the things, that's what my family hosts in my own community. Different families have different things they host, but the New Yam is everybody returning to the original Ọfọ of the community. So that's what that's for. So I'm going to be having an online one. I'm thinking about Zoom. I don't know how many guests you can have on Zoom. So, if that doesn't work, I'll figure something out. But we're going to have one. We're all going to share the different things that we were able to achieve and so forth. And so this right now is the beginning of the planting moon of the thing that we're going to celebrate for our Medicine Shell online New Yam Festival and so forth. So whatever it is that was holding you back, rip it up, burn it, crack it on the ground, and sweep it out of your life. Make that vow to get this thing done. You've got 2 moons. That's 28 days times 2. I can't do math. I'm probably dyslexic or something. But yeah, you got just that amount of time to get that thing, to hop into that thing and get that thing done. Any doubts you have, and if you can make this vow to yourself and not get it done, it's not for you. Just move on. Try to find something else, even if it's something that you believe you love. If you loved it, you would have done it already. That kind of thing. So let's go for it. I'm going to read some comments. I got people saying, hold on. Ugochukwu Chid says, yeah, I agree. This makes a lot of sense. Time, start doing touch and okay. Can you search? Okay, my bad. I'm reading the wrong thing. I'm trying to get better at this. I always see people like just quickly read off people's comments and stuff like that. I'm trying to learn how to do that, and I'm not there yet. So we'll see. Interesting that it follows Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ. Yes, it is. It is interesting that it follows Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ. Ikenga Nation. And then, I said earlier too, so I hope I'm not repeating myself too much, that Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ, a lot of that is, what you'll see a lot often in Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ is clearing of fields on a physical level, the clearing of fields and a major masquerade festival, like the community's main masquerade festival. So we just finished Owu. And our mama, our main one is called Owu. Every community is going to have their own. If you are at all interested in the things I'm talking about and you are from back home, figure out what masquerades they do in your community. The things I'm saying are big, vague, and general, right? Those are the important things. Figure out what, because I put out a call for people to let me know what masquerades they do so I can put it on the calendar. I didn't really get too many responses. So either it's a matter of I ain't telling you, right? I ain't telling you that shit, or a case of people not knowing, and I know that, I wouldn't be able to do this channel if I didn't go home, see masquerades, and love them as much as I did, and do my own. During the New Yam Moon, there's one they call Untitled Chapter. It correlates a lot with U.S. Halloween. And a good friend of mine let me know in Vietnam, they had the exact same thing at the exact same time, where it's just children making their own masquerades, going around dancing, collecting money house from house. Instead of candy, it's money. You get money house from house. We used to do, it's called Wichim. And I used to do this when I was younger with my cousin Emeka. Emeka and I reincarnate from the same person. So oddly enough, before I placed any significance on that, he and I had a lot in common as far as interests, right? We were always just kind of off to ourselves doing some kind of project or doing something. I remember one time we started a league of grasshopper fighting. Like we were like Mike Vick before Mike Vick. We would get these grasshoppers and we'd make them fight each other and that type of thing. And then all of a sudden, all the kids wanted to get their own grasshoppers and that type of thing. And I had one that kept killing everybody's grasshoppers. It was like really strong. Now that I'm older, I know it's a locust, but at the time I didn't know. I thought it was a grasshopper. So I had this locust eating these grasshoppers and that type of thing. When he died, I gave him a full funeral. I can point to the spot where he's buried in my village, just right in front of my dad's house. I dug him a little thing. I put cement over his grave so I can remember where he's buried and that type of thing. So I don't know where that story came from, but yeah, those different masquerades, they're extremely important. They're extremely important. They're the core of your culture. Right? Forget Igbo culture. You're from a specific place, right? That specific place, the core of its culture is in that masquerade. So try to learn what those are. If you want your community's masquerade represented on the calendar, let me know. I'll do the rest. I'll figure out the rest by myself. I just added all the festivities I could for Onitsha. Somebody from Onitsha let me know all these different things that they do. So I really appreciate them for doing that, and so forth. This is awesome, interesting. Cultures, you plants, high esteem. Yes. Cool. Totally want to take part in that. All right, Abigail. Make that vow. Make that vow. So, because we're all gonna have to say what it is and how far we got. So I don't want nobody to be embarrassed. But yeah, I'll be great if we can have you take part. The Bahamas is John Canoe on New Year's Day and Boxing Day. Absolutely. Yeah. Is it John Canoe? Yeah, I think John Canoe. Somebody theorized that John Canoe is associated with Ojikanu or Ojikonu. Sorry, I'm saying it right. Ojikonu. Sorry, I'm saying it wrong. It's not. They don't do it in my community. It's like Enugu. It's a festival in Enugu that they do, I want to say roughly the same time, with very similar, the way they do the dancing is very similar. I even see parts of Owu, the one we do in my own community, in Jonkanu. So it's very interesting. That one has always interested me. It's something I was paying attention to well before I started this channel. They said Bahamas. I thought it was just Jamaica, but it's cool that it's done in the Bahamas too. Growing up in America with your parents, you really need to ask questions. Yes, yes, yes. My name, yes. My name question mark. I keep kicking this thing. 100. You look in people. Oh, my parents didn't teach me this. My parents didn't teach. One, your parents not a teacher, so forget that. That's not their job. It's your job. If you're curious, go find out. And two, this thing is so everyday life to them that it's not interesting. It's not. They would never think like if you. There's a lot of very interesting things about American culture that you wouldn't think to tell somebody, because it's just it wouldn't even cross your mind that that person needs to know that thing, right? Like if I'm not gonna sit down and tell, hey, so I'm gonna explain Chewbacca to you. Nobody's gonna do that, right? So you need to ask, what is this thing? What is that thing? What do we do here? What do we do there? When I started early, I said, I always used to post a lot on Twitter that, go and ask your parents who your ancestors are. Go and ask your parents your family history. And this goes beyond the Nigerian American diaspora people too, or the ones in Nigeria, because I guess it's like a thing in Nigeria now. This is everybody. Go ask, go find those things out, go learn those things. It's extremely important. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I said it. I noticed a lot of people would say that, like, my parents won't tell me because they're Christian. So you don't have to say ancestor. You can say grandparents. You can say great grandparent. That type of thing. You'll get to the same place. But yeah, I notice a lot of people. There's like a nervousness about asking these questions, and it's awkward. I mean, I understand. My parents know I'm kind of a nerd, so if I ask them these questions, it's not weird, because I already have a habit and history of doing it anyway. So if it's awkward, fine. But yeah, go ask. If you're from back home, the most important thing you can do, right, is learn about that back home, that specific community, right, and then of course, language and things like that. But right now we're talking about masquerades. So go figure that thing out, that your whole history and cosmology is embedded in that thing. And if you learn it, you don't even need to watch the medicine show. It's all right there. That kind of thing. It is also important in Jamaican culture. If it relates to our emancipation. Nadine, thank you for that. Yeah, I would like to know the story of how it's connected, or is that how the emancipation is celebrated? Because it'd be interesting to see how that all factored together and came together. I know that like I said, I know that the movements look a lot like in my own place. And then somebody has theorized that it's connected to Ojikanu in the Enugu area. So that is really interesting. The state teaches children, most parents won't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't depend on the state to teach you. You have to ask questions. You have to ask questions. And some of us are damn near 40. I mean, when are we going to leave our parents? Let's quit blaming our parents. Oh, didn't teach me this. Go find out. That kind of thing. Ask them. If you ask them, they'll know. I'm still going to watch the medicine show. Gucci Gucci, you the man. I appreciate that. I'll try to send some info. If that is to me, as far as sending info, yeah, send it. That's great. That's a great gift. That type of thing. So yeah, that's what I wanted to announce, is that I'm going to be having a New Yam Festival, and we're going to be discussing the different goals we set in this moon, in this 28-day period, right? And within this 28-day period, we're going to get to work. And once the New Yam Festival occurs, we're all going to go live, or whatever it's going to be. We're going to just discuss the different things that we set out to do and how we were able to get them done, right? Another thing I want to emphasize, and you're going to notice this with a lot of African cosmology, especially if it's from back home, because I consider things in diaspora African as well, so on and so forth. But the ones rooted back home in specific, the spirituality is not, African spirituality is not something you go somewhere and do, right? You don't separate from your actual life, go do spirituality, and then come back into your life. That's not how it works. These things that I'm discussing are the tools and the sets of understanding and the sets of connection or methodologies for connection and understanding that our ancestors used to do their regular life, right? So they are one and the same, right? There's no such thing as everybody goes somewhere and like you just pray and then you come back and on Sunday you go there again, right? These are everyday things. So when I'm talking about these things, try to think about how you can apply them towards your goals, towards improving things within your own life, because that's what I did, and it helped. It helped a lot. It helped drastically, right? It's a living thing. It's not something that is separate from your actual life. So as you're setting these goals for the next from now until the New Yam Festival, that type of thing. There are things that, I've discussed that may apply, that perhaps you can apply it towards getting things done, right? Like I just told you about the ritual, the breaking the pot and then the sweeping it out, right? That is just a way of telling yourself and telling the universe that this is not going to be my portion for this year, right? This is not going to be my portion for this planting season. This is no longer going to be my portion, that type of thing. You understand? It's not necessarily that that type of thing. Like a lot of, and I'm not knocking anybody's belief system, but a lot of the belief systems in Eurasia, this is Asia and Europe, there's a goal towards detachment from the world, right? There's always a goal of detachment from the world. So in Buddhism, you reach an enlightenment where you don't even need the world anymore, that kind of thing. You don't need to reincarnate anymore. Christianity, there's everything worldly is evil, that kind of thing. There's a detachment, there's that type of thing. In African cosmology or African, whatever you want to call it, spirituality, they are one and the same, right? When in the first world age, when human beings grew a separation from Chukwu, these are the things that they started digging out and trying to find out in order to reconnect. And in that the purpose of that reconnection was to enhance their experience on this earth. Because being alive is a very special gift. It doesn't last that long. And even when you come back, you can't come back with your memories and so forth, right? So that type, there's the earth itself is Chukwu. It's not, you don't go somewhere to go connect to Chukwu. The earth itself is Chukwu. The things you do day to day is your spirituality, right? So people talk about, there should be like a Igbo spirituality Bible. Nature is the Bible. Nature is the Bible. If for lack of better terms, this is about reading your own life. You're applying these things to your own life, right? I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm doing whatever, but anything, if it's just about like mystical, magical, whatever, you're gonna get bored when you see it applied in real life, because it's gonna be business, job. Like, go watch my market video if you don't believe me. It's gonna be business, work, families, that type of thing. It's very ground earth based. It's about an human experience, that type of thing. So celebrating Jamaica during Christmas season, awesome. The last moon, Ọnwa Ifejiọkụ, is the last moon. I wondered if you can explain Agonsi. So I have a video called Agon Explained. Agon is a very vast and complex concept, especially since it's so central to Dibia work and spirituality itself. But more or less, when I say Agon, I'm including, some people say Agon, some people will say Agon, that type of thing. The Agon is the mind of the universe, right? So in being alive, in having a chi and all those things, we also have the mind of the universe within us. So all that there is to know, we are already all knowing. We know all things. We've seen all things. We've experienced all things the way Chukwu has seen, experienced all of these different things. It's already within us, right? And Agon is within us, but we cannot necessarily access Agon without training, without ability, and without, or sometimes without the natural gift of being able to do so. Now, the thing about Agon is that a lot of the times when Agon is the part of you that reincarnates, it's also the part of you that holds your mission on earth, right? So it's the part of you that knows why you're here. It's the part of you that knows your purpose. So in order to understand that purpose, you tap into Agon and so forth. Now, when you'll see the term Agon Sing or Agon, they're synonymous. It's synonymous. But oftentimes I hear Agon Sing referred to when, almost specifically for Agon when it pertains to Dibias, right? So Agon when it pertains to when a Dibia's access to Agon is stronger than the average person. Now, not everybody who's initiated, not everybody who Not everybody who has this gift is specifically a dibia. Some people have a natural clairvoyance. Some people have an ability to dream lucidly and pull answers out of dreams. Some people have these abilities that are naturally associated with a dibia, but they're not necessarily a dibia. It's not whatever. Those people have a closer connection to that universal mind, to Agon, than the average person, right? So Agon seen is Agon when it kind of takes hold of your life and it says, you are going to be a dibia, right? That kind of thing. That's where I hear the term used a lot, but it's all the same thing. And so when that Agon takes hold of your life, that's going to be your mission. Your mission is going to be spirit work or dibia work and that type of thing. But it's going to be rough in the sense that once that happens, things are going to go bad, or often, if you're not already on that path, things are going to go bad for you because Agon has a rough hand, right? So a lot of times when people are affected by Agon, you'll see bouts of what looks like schizophrenia. I don't want to call it the same because I doubt there's been a study to link them. It's called Aragon in our culture, and Aragon's Aragon, that kind of thing, but it looks like schizophrenia. You'll have bouts of things that look like schizophrenia. Everything you try, a lot of the things you try, you're going to fail at. Even if you're qualified to succeed in that thing, you're going to fail in those different things. You're always going to hit roadblocks, that type of things. Things are just going to fall apart when they touch your hands until you make peace with Agon. Once you make peace with that Agon, you can then go on and live your life and so on and so forth. But in making that peace, what often happens, or what 99.9, I'm sure there's an exception, so I won't say 100%, but 99.9% of the time happens is making that peace is one, understanding and accepting that thing that you have, right? That gift, understanding and accepting it. And then a vow of what will look like humility, will be humility, right? And then understanding that you have the awful of Agon, or awful of the thing that, of what, like, let's say, for example, some people have the gift of clairvoyance, right? Understand that gift is an awful, and every awful comes with rules, right? Every awful comes with rules. And so long as you maintain the principles of that awful, that gift will work with you. If you are not maintaining the principles of that awful, it will work against you. It will destroy you, that type of thing, right? So oftentimes what will happen is when you have this gift, DBAs often have to use their gift for the betterment of others. And the more they do that, the less it starts looking like schizophrenia, the more it starts kind of making sense. So you're using this gift for the betterment of others. You're not afraid of it. You've made peace with it. You're one with it. And you're maintaining the accord you're supposed to maintain with it. And in having that all fall, you're maintaining certain principles. You're not cheating people. You're not taking what doesn't belong to you. You're not overcharging. You're not just so on and so forth. This is a long list of things and so forth. And whatever. So usually when somebody has an all-fall, there's a ceremony, or I call it a ceremony, but it's something that's done daily. With the all-fall, I don't know why the name's not coming to me. But more or less, you declare your principles onto the all-fall. I have not done this. I have not done this. I have not, so on and so forth. Looks, and I always say this, looks very similar to the 48 rules of Ma'at. Now, I've never heard somebody go down a line of 48 things. It's usually pretty short, right? But in doing that, right, in saying these, I have not done this and this, you are showing that you have maintained that accord with the all-fall, right? And every all-fall comes with what is called Ogun, right? Ogun is translated as medicine, but Ogun is really anything that has an effect, right? So any gift, anything you have that has an effect. Once you have that gift, there's also an all-fall that comes with it, right? And the goal, or the key, is to balance them. That in order for me to keep this gift, I must keep the principles of this gift. In order for me to keep this all-fall, to have authority of this gift, I must use this gift, that type of thing. Spider-Man says it, with great power comes great responsibility. That principle is all-fall. That's all-fall and all. That's what it is, right? So you often say that all-fall and all is like a philosophy that ties to justice and peace and righteousness and so on and so forth, because that's what it means. So I probably answered like 30 questions in that outside of the original question. How do I make peace? Somebody said, how do I make peace? Is accepting the Agun, accepting that gift you have. A lot of times, one of the reasons I said earlier that African spiritual systems, one thing that's very unique about them is that you don't go somewhere and do it, right? It's a part of your life. Part of this spirituality is accepting your life and accepting yourself, right? So there's no such a thing as like, I mean, yes, there is such a thing as reaching a higher self, but the African will ask you why. Okay, you want to get to your higher self. Why do you want to do that? Because it feels good, or what? What are you going to do with it? That kind of thing. What's the purpose of doing that? Right. So when it comes to a situation like making peace with Agon, is acknowledging that thing. If it looks like what you would call schizophrenia, saying this is who I am, this is what it is. I am blessed to have this thing as a part of my life. You're not necessarily entitled to not have it. You understand, right? What does it want from me? What am I supposed to do with this thing, right? If how can I respect its rules? What are its rules, and how do I respect those rules? You can have a DBA help you with this. You can have a very skilled, very skilled and understanding psychiatrist help you with this, or you can do a good portion of it, not all of it, but a good portion of it on your own, right? A good portion of it on your own, right? Like myself, I promise I probably have I'm probably a little attention deficit, right? So at first, this thing used to bother me a lot. I would lose my keys. I'd lose my keys probably once a week, like lose them, really lose them. Like if you go to my bank, I've ordered like bazillions of cards and that type of thing or whatever. But as I've gotten older, I've made more peace with this thing. I understand it a little bit better. I know that it has its rules. And at the same time, a lot of the gifts in my life, right, come from that thing. I can think very quickly. I can observe things very quickly. I can learn very fast. It comes with there's like a hyper focus I have sometimes, right? I didn't know I've been talking for an hour because I'm that kind of thing. But sometimes when that thing kicks in, I'll forget other things, right? And I'll get mad I forgot that thing instead of being appreciative that I was able to go this far into my own mind, into my own focus, right? That kind of thing. So it's just that type of thing. Just understand this is who I am. This is how I'm configured. Not entitled to be configured any other way. I'm lucky just to be alive. There's something good about this thing that I'm supposed to apply to help and use other people. I don't think this channel would work if I wasn't ADHD as hell. So that type of thing. That's how you can make peace with it in your own self. Now, that is very mild compared to other afflictions and things that people deal with. So I'm not going to say that my example is blankets and that you can just do it on your own. And of course, I'm not even there yet. I'm not all the way there yet. I'm a lot better, but I'm not all the way there yet. But understanding the principles of that thing, right? If you have a gift, you have an all that comes with that gift. So my experience made peace with my current spiritual practice. Everything else was blocked. My practice. It's like a runaway train. Awesome. Okay. Interesting stuff. Bantu Migration. I'm from South Africa. Cool. Lots of similarities still, though we lost most of the explanations. Yeah, the similarities will blow your mind. The one that really made me hone in was the thumb piano that they found in Zimbabwe. Looks identical to another thumb piano that was found in Igbo land. They're both made of iron. Ubaka, we call it Ubaka. I'm sure you guys have a different name for it too, right? There's also, and one of the things that back up that Bantu theory is the word Bantu, right? So in all these cultures, the word Bantu or what looks like a variation of that word will always mean the people or humans or people in that language, right? Which is interesting because in Igbo, we say Madu, or Ndi Madu, right? But we say that our first ancestors, the first people on earth were Mbotu. You understand? So in some cultures, they say Mbantu. Some cultures say Mbitu or something. And it goes all the way through the central band of Africa, these different variations. So we do actually have a group of people we call Mbotu, right? A lot of times you'll hear in be it in ritual or whatever, they'll say Mbotu or Mbotu Ndutu Nandiegede, Mbotu Nandiegede, that kind of thing. Those are said to be our ancestors, right? So that type of thing. Ugochiguchi, and I wanted to say, yeah, no, you can laugh. That's my troll ass brother, son. I don't know what he's talking about. When I was a kid, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I could see the future. But no, you weren't, bro. So it's been an hour, so I think I'm going to sign off. That's my brother. So yeah, you can laugh. Igor Fall Tutu. I'm sorry. Yes, Ikenga Nation. I don't know why it wasn't coming to me. Igor Fall Tutu was where you have the awful and you declare those principles onto the awful. You understand, to show that I have this thing, this authority, but I am worthy of having this authority because I have not stolen, I have not coveted what is not mine. So on, all these different lists, right? You go down the list. I have not harmed anybody. I have not plotted harm against another person. I have not envied, or I guess that's coveted, that kind of thing, that type of thing. So you just list all these principles that make you worthy of having that all, and then you can then add on, if somebody is wishing this against me, may it happen to them. If somebody is bringing this into my life, may it happen to them, that type of thing. It won't happen, all, and then from there it becomes law. It becomes you manifest it into the universe, you carry the all, and you go on into your life. So it's superpower at the moment. Cool. All right, so this has been an hour. I tried to get this like new light, but it's got me sweating really bad. But I don't know, I might keep it. I like how things look. So I want to thank you guys for coming as always. We are going to be celebrating in, I believe, 2 or 3 more moons. I think it's 2. I'll double check. The new yam. So whatever it is that you've been saying you want to do, you want to start, you want to get done, this is the moon to do it, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable at the end of this period with the New Yam Festival. We'll figure out how we can all be in it, and we can all be live. If it's not possible, then maybe we'll do it like this. But this is my worst case scenario. I want it to be interactive. I want to see faces. I want people to talk and so forth. If you're one of my patrons, you're familiar with our live studies, our Odinani live studies, and I want it to kind of look like that, where you have multiple people. We're discussing different topics within Igbo cosmology and how it applies to real life, or not real life, to our personal lives and so forth. We're sharing ideas, we're building with each other and so forth. So I kind of want to look similar to that. If anybody is interested in getting the calendar and supporting the Medicine Shell as a channel, support us at patreon.com. I'm going to type the link here. Patreon.com/the Medicine Shell. So patrons have access to an in-house Debia for if you need personal help with different things and readings. One of the things that has been very popular between the patrons and him is getting the readings and learning your akaraka. I posted an infographic that tells the different things that you can get in a reading. You can learn who you incarnate from. You can learn what you have an alpha in. So you are born with an alpha, right? So a lot, or not everybody, but most people, or a lot of people, are born with an alpha, and that's the thing that you have authority over in this world, right? If you're doing that thing, you cannot be stopped. Nobody can take that from you. But that authority, that power you have in that thing is going to come with a set of principles you're going to need to follow in order to keep that bond together. If you're not following those principles, that all fall will not activate. Does that make sense? I'll use, let me do that. Actually, that's another video. Let me do it. But yeah, so you could learn the things you have in all fall in. You could also learn, if you watch my Animals Explained video, part 2 is coming very soon. If you watch Animal Explained video, you'll know that some people, here comes my son. So you'll learn that some people are born with a connection to certain animals, right? And that's something that you can get in a reading. So our in-house Debia can do that. And that is going to tell you a little bit about your nature, about your Ijo, or your path, and it's going to tell you a little bit about your chi, or the nature of your chi, and what your chi intends for you, or intends for you in the world. You can also learn the different ancestors that follow you, right? I think that people call it spirit guide. So the different ancestors that follow you, there's sometimes certain ancestors may not be the one that reincarnated from you, but they follow you and they guide you and they protect you, usually for a specific reason or just because of whatever. And then sometimes forces that are not family, right? Forces from elsewhere. Some people are connected to an Abara. Some people are connected to different things, right? So that's one of the things you can figure out in a reading, as well as answers on different things in life. I'm trying to think of the different things we do on our Patreon. Of course, you have access to my library. So I keep all of the documents that I read, or a lot of them I haven't read yet, but a lot of documents that I haven't read yet in this giant library. I want to say we're well over 200, 300-ish, maybe, documents in there. Some short, some are full books. There are full books in there. All of it is available to patrons. Then, of course, like I said, our Odinani live chat, where we discuss with each other. We pick different topics and we learn. I'm going to ask my patrons if it's okay. The last one we had was exceptional. I really liked it, so I wanted to post it so that people can kind of see what we're doing. But I want to talk to everybody and see if they're okay with that, because it's usually just for them. But with that being said, this is Derek of Father-in-Law. Yes, I need that too, fam. There you go. So yeah, that being said, God's home Hebrew. Cool. That being said, this is Derek of Father-in-Law with the Medicine Shell. I want to thank you guys for coming. I'm sorry. And then the calendar. Yes. So I'm making the calendar available for all patrons. If you're a patron, I'm getting you LinkedIn. Some people were having issues. We kind of figured out what was causing the issue. A lot of times when you have like a custom email address, it might be an issue. If you have a Gmail, that is ideal, but I can work with any of the other major email addresses, but we can link it. It's a digital calendar. It lets you know what moons, different observances, and the market days, which of the market days that are happening. So that's available to all patrons. In the video, I said that today was going to be the last day that I'm going to make it available for all patrons. It's going to be the end of Ọnwa, the beginning of Ifejiọkụ, but that's a little too confusing for people that don't already have the calendar. So I'll just do it till the end of this month, right? So till the end of this month, if you join, you can get it. After that, it's going to be only for Eze tier patrons. If you already have the calendar, you don't have anything to worry about, you're going to keep it, that kind of thing. So, but anybody that joins after, like, who joins next month and beyond is going to have to be Eze tier to get the thing. So that being said, this is Derek Father-in-Law. I want to thank you guys for joining me, and take care.